The silent invasion. The first sign that something was wrong came from the bees. Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood in her laboratory at the Global Environmental Research Institute, staring at data that made absolutely no sense. Worldwide, bee populations had suddenly altered their behavior patterns, abandoning their hives en masse. Similar reports were coming in about other insects, birds, and even marine life. Maya ran her fingers through her dark curls, a habit that surfaced whenever she encountered a puzzle she couldn't solve. The environmental readings were perfect. No pollution spikes, no unusual weather patterns, no obvious cause for this worldwide phenomenon. Yet something was clearly disrupting Earth's ecosystems on a fundamental level. Dr. Rodriguez, you need to see this. Her research assistant, Tom Walsh, burst into the lab, tablet in hand. The usual professional demeanor he maintained was gone, replaced by barely contained panic. He thrust the device toward her, displaying a live feed from one of their atmospheric monitoring stations. The readings showed unusual particle dispersal patterns in the upper atmosphere, patterns that defied natural formation. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she processed what she was seeing. These weren't random disturbances. They were organized, geometric, moving with purpose. How long has this been happening? She demanded, already pulling up historical data on her main screen. That's the thing, Tom replied, his voice shaking. When we checked the archive data, we found similar patterns going back 3 months. They were just too subtle to notice until now. Maya felt her blood run cold. 3 months. Whatever this was, it had been happening right under their noses for 3 months. She immediately initiated emergency protocols, sending alerts to her superiors and relevant government agencies. But as she would soon learn, it was already too late. The next 48 hours changed everything. The patterns in the atmosphere intensified, forming vast, shadowy networks that blocked out significant portions of sunlight. Global temperatures dropped by 2 degrees Celsius in a single day. And then they appeared. They didn't arrive in massive ships or with overwhelming force like in the movies. Instead, they simply manifested. Crystalline structures began growing in major cities worldwide, sprouting from the ground like alien trees. Anyone who approached them reported feeling disoriented, experiencing memories that weren't their own. Maya found herself at the center of the crisis when military officials arrived at her lab, demanding answers. She had been tracking the environmental changes from the beginning, making her one of the few scientists with a comprehensive dataset of the invasion's early stages. What we're dealing with, she explained to the grim-faced generals gathered in her lab, is unlike anything we could have anticipated. These aren't just aliens, they're terraformers. They're changing our planet's biosphere at the molecular level. The evidence was overwhelming. The bizarre animal behavior, the atmospheric changes, the crystalline structures. It was all part of a coordinated effort to transform Earth into something else. Something alien. How do we fight them? General Sarah Harrison asked, her weathered face tight with concern. We can't even get close to those structures without our people being affected. Maya's response was interrupted by an urgent alert from her monitoring systems. The crystalline structures were releasing something into the atmosphere, microscopic particles that seemed to interface directly with organic matter. They're not just changing our planet, Maya realized, horror dawning as she analyzed the new data. They're trying to change us. This isn't an invasion, it's forced evolution. As if to confirm her words, reports began flooding in from around the globe. People near the alien structures were experiencing rapid genetic mutations. Most were fatal, but some were surviving, their DNA being rewritten into something new. The military's response was swift but ultimately futile. Conventional weapons had no effect on the crystalline structures, which seemed to exist partially in another dimension. Nuclear options were deemed too risky. There was no guarantee they would stop the invasion, and they would certainly destroy what remained of Earth's fragile ecosystems. Maya worked tirelessly, analyzing data and searching for weaknesses. The aliens' method was brilliant in its simplicity. No need for violent conquest when you could simply rewrite the enemy at the genetic level. But in their elegance, Maya began to see a flaw. "They're using our own biology against us," she explained to her team as they worked through another sleepless night. "But that means they have to understand our biology to manipulate it. And understanding goes both ways." She had noticed something in the latest data. The alien particles weren't just changing human DNA. They were also carrying information back to the crystalline structures. It was a two-way street, a dialogue of sorts between human biology and alien technology. As the world around them descended into chaos, Maya made a discovery that would change the course of the invasion. The aliens' genetic modifications weren't random. They were following a specific pattern, trying to achieve a predetermined outcome. And in that rigid, predetermined approach lay humanity's chance for survival. Because if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was adapting in ways that no one, not even hyper-advanced alien species, could predict. Maya looked at her latest test results with a grim smile. The aliens thought they were forcing humanity to evolve according to their plans, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson about natural selection. Human beings, it turned out, were far more adaptable than their invaders had anticipated. And adaptation, as Maya well knew, was just another word for survival. Breaking point. Commander Jack Chen watched from the command center as another wave of mutations swept through the refugee camp. The screams were becoming all too familiar. 3 weeks into the invasion, and humanity was fighting a war unlike any in history, a battle against their own evolving biology. The military base outside Vancouver had become one of the last major strongholds on the North American West Coast. Its distance from the nearest alien crystal structure had given them precious time to establish containment protocols. But Jack knew they were living on borrowed time. The alien particles were spreading, carried by wind currents that seemed to follow unnatural patterns. "Sir, we have new data from Dr. Rodriguez's team," Lieutenant Emma Santos reported, her tablet displaying a stream of complex biological readings. The young officer's right arm showed the early signs of mutation, iridescent patches that seemed to shimmer in the light. Yet she remained at her post, determined to fight until she could no longer function. Jack studied the data, his military training warring with the sheer impossibility of what they faced. The aliens weren't just changing human DNA, they were selecting for specific traits. Those who survived the initial mutations displayed increased strength, enhanced neural connectivity, and most disturbingly, a growing sensitivity to the alien crystal's electromagnetic fields. "How many survived this wave?" he asked, dreading the answer. 17%, sir. Higher than last time." Emma's voice carried a hint of hope, but Jack saw through it immediately. "They're getting better at it," he muttered, learning from each failure, refining their process. He turned to the massive display screen showing the status of military installations worldwide. Most of the markers were dark now, signifying lost contact. The few that remained active formed a desperate constellation of human resistance. A priority alert flashed across the screen, a transmission from the Chinese military command. Jack authorized it immediately, and General Lai Wei's weathered face appeared on the display. "Commander Chen," Lai's voice crackled with interference, "we've confirmed your hypothesis. The crystals are not just transmission points. They're incubators. The survivors of the mutations, they're being drawn to them." Jack felt his stomach twist. They'd noticed the pattern. How those who survived the genetic restructuring began experiencing compelling urges to approach the alien structures. Initially, they'd restrained these individuals, but as their numbers grew, containment became increasingly difficult. "What happens to them?" Jack asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "They enter the crystals," Lai replied grimly. "And they don't come out. But the structures, they're changing, growing, becoming more complex. They're using our own people as building materials." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just an invasion or even forced evolution. It was assimilation on a fundamental level. The aliens were turning humans into components of their own technological ecosystem. Jack's response was cut short by alarms blaring throughout the base. Emma's fingers flew across her console, pulling up security feeds. The containment ward, where they kept those showing advanced mutations, was in chaos. The patients were breaking free, their enhanced strength overwhelming the guards. "All units, this is not a drill." Jack's voice boomed through the base's communication system. "Containment breach in Sector 7. Security teams converge, but remember, these are still our people. Non-lethal force only." He watched through the security feeds as the scene unfolded. The mutated humans moved with unnatural coordination, as if guided by some shared purpose. Their skin gleamed with crystalline patterns, and their eyes glowed with an inner light that was decidedly inhuman. "Sir," Emma's voice was tight with urgency. "They're not trying to escape the base. They're heading for the communication center." Jack's mind raced. The communication center housed their quantum entanglement array, their only reliable means of coordinating with other surviving military installations. If they lost it, lock down the comm center, he ordered. "And get me Dr. Rodriguez. We need to understand what's happening to them." The response came not from Emma, but from the base's AI system. Unable to establish connection with Dr. Rodriguez's facility, last transmission indicated severe molecular disturbance in their region. Jack felt the weight of command pressing down on him like a physical force. They were losing, not just battles, but the very essence of what made them human. Yet as he watched his soldiers struggle to contain their transformed comrades, he saw something that gave him pause. Not all the mutations were identical. Despite the aliens' apparent attempt to enforce a specific evolutionary path, human DNA was responding in unpredictable ways. Some of the transformed showed abilities that seemed to go beyond the aliens' design, expressing traits that appeared to be uniquely human innovations on the forced evolution. "Sir," Emma called out, her voice strange. Jack turned to find her staring at her mutated arm, where the iridescent patches were spreading. But unlike the others, her transformation seemed different. The patterns were geometric but distinctly terrestrial, more like naturally occurring fractals than alien crystal structures. "I can feel them," she whispered. "Their network, their plans. But unstill me. We're not just changing into what they want us to be. We're becoming something else entirely." Jack moved to her side, his mind racing with possibilities. If some humans could maintain their consciousness through the transformation, if they could adapt the aliens' modifications to serve their own purposes. "Get me everything we have on the successful mutations," he ordered. "Every deviation from the aliens' expected patterns, every anomaly. Maybe we can't stop the change, but we might be able to control it." As his team scrambled to comply, Jack looked out over the chaos of the containment breach with new eyes. Humanity was standing at an evolutionary crossroads, and while the aliens might have forced their hand, they hadn't accounted for humanity's greatest strength, the ability to take what was meant to destroy them and make it their own. The war for Earth was about to enter a new phase, and Jack Chen intended to ensure that whatever emerged from this crucible of forced evolution would still carry the indomitable spirit of humanity within it. The hidden weapon. Dr. Kira Patel hadn't slept in 3 days. The underground laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains hummed with activity as she studied the latest genetic samples from the surviving mutants. Her eyes burned from staring at holographic DNA strands, but she couldn't stop, not when she was this close to understanding what made some humans different. The specimen under her microscope came from Lieutenant Emma Santos, one of the rare cases where the alien-induced mutations had produced something unexpected. Unlike the standard transformations that turned humans into crystal-seeking drones, Emma's changes had stabilized in a unique configuration. "Look at this," Kira muttered to her AI assistant, ARIA. "The alien particles are being absorbed, but instead of overwriting the host DNA, they're being incorporated into existing genetic structures. It's like her body is treating them as raw materials rather than instructions." Aria's holographic interface flickered as it processed the data. Analysis suggests this pattern appears in approximately 0.03% of surviving subjects. Correlation with genetic markers indicates possible link to ancestral exposure to extreme environmental adaptations. Kira straightened, her mind racing. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its diversity. Countless generations of adaptation to every environment Earth had to offer. While the aliens tried to force a single, uniform evolution, human DNA carried the memory of thousands of different survival strategies. A priority message flashed across her screen. Commander Chen's face appeared, looking more haggard than ever. "Dr. Patel, we're running out of time. The crystal structures are entering a new growth phase. We're losing cities by the hour." "I need more time," Kira insisted, but even as she said it, something caught her eye in the genetic display. She froze, then quickly ran a comparison analysis. "Wait, Commander, are you seeing any pattern in who's surviving the mutations? Any common ancestral backgrounds?" "Now that you mention it," Chen's brow furrowed. "We've noticed higher survival rates among populations with historical exposure to high-altitude environments. We thought it was just a statistical anomaly." "It's not an anomaly." Kira's fingers flew across her console, pulling up global data. "It's the key. The aliens' particles, they're designed for sea-level atmospheric conditions. When they encounter genetic adaptations for high-altitude survival, they behave differently. The body's natural resistance to environmental stress creates gaps in their programming." She sent her findings to Chen, watching his expression change as he processed the implications. "You're saying we can use our own evolutionary history as a weapon?" "Better than that." Kira pulled up Emma's genetic sequence. "Look at what happens when we introduce the particles to cells that already have environmental adaptation markers. Instead of being overwritten, the cells learn from the alien DNA. They adapt it, incorporate it, but maintain human characteristics." The discovery sparked a frantic race against time. While the alien crystals continued their inexorable spread across the planet's surface, Kira and her team worked to develop a way to trigger these adaptive responses in the broader population. They found their answer in humanity's chunk DNA, the vast segments of genetic code that carried the ghosts of past adaptations. By activating these dormant sequences using modified versions of the alien particles themselves, they could prepare human cells to resist and reshape the forced evolution. "It's ready," Kira announced 72 hours later, holding up a vial of shimmering liquid. "But there's a catch. We can't stop the transformations entirely. The best we can do is guide them. Help people's bodies adapt the alien changes into something that maintains human consciousness and free will." Commander Chen's response was immediate. "Do it. Better we change on our terms than become their puppets." The distribution began immediately, using the same wind currents the aliens had exploited to spread their particles. Within days, the results became apparent. Where before the mutations had created mindless drones drawn to the crystals, now they produced something entirely new. The transformed humans retained their intelligence and independence, while gaining abilities that seemed to bridge the gap between biological and crystalline existence. They could interface with the alien structures, but instead of being absorbed, they could manipulate them. Kira watched through the lab's monitors as the first wave of successfully transformed humans approached a crystal structure. Led by Emma Santos, they moved with purpose, their altered bodies glowing with internal light that pulsed in defiance of the aliens' control signals. As they made contact with the crystal, something unprecedented happened. The structure's color changed, its alien geometries beginning to shift and reform. The humans weren't just resisting the transformation. They were reversing it, imposing their own will on the alien technology. They didn't understand what they were dealing with. Kira transmitted to the command center. They thought DNA was just a code they could rewrite. They didn't realize it's a record of every challenge humanity has ever faced and overcome. Every famine, every plague, every climate shift. It's all written in our genes. And now we're adding their invasion to that record. The aliens had sought to force humanity down a single evolutionary path. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to explore 1,000 new ones. As Kira watched the transformed humans begin to take control of the crystal networks, she realized that this wasn't just resistance. It was the next step in human evolution, but on humanity's own terms. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, the future held more promise than fear. Humanity would emerge from this crucible change, but unbroken, carrying forward the same adaptability and determination that had brought them from the African savanna to the stars. Counterattack. The transformed humans moved through the ruins of London like living lightning, their crystalline-enhanced bodies pulsing with energy. Lieutenant Emma Santos led the assault team toward the massive alien structure that had once been Big Ben, its clock face now wrapped in geometric growths that reached into the sky. Emma's consciousness expanded through the crystalline network, sensing the alien presence that permeated the city. The invaders had never bothered to install defenses against their own technology. They hadn't imagined their carefully engineered evolution could be turned against them. Commander Chen's voice crackled through their neural link. "Strike Team Alpha, you have go-ahead. Dr. Patel's latest data suggests the central node is vulnerable. Hit it hard, hit it fast." The alien crystals had spread across Earth's surface like a web, each major structure connecting to others through channels of pure energy. But thanks to Dr. Patel's breakthrough, humanity had learned to ride these channels, to infiltrate the very network meant to enslave them. Emma's team synchronized their movements, their enhanced bodies moving with impossible grace. The aliens had meant to create perfect drones. Instead, they'd given humanity the tools to become something far more dangerous, warriors who could fight back on both the physical and digital planes simultaneously. Contact in 3, Emma transmitted to her squad. The crystalline growth ahead pulsed with alien data streams, trying to recognize and categorize the approaching threats. But human DNA, enhanced and adapted rather than overwritten, proved impossible for their systems to parse. The first alien defenders emerged from the structure, floating crystalline entities that had once been human before complete absorption into the alien network. They moved with mechanical precision, but lacked the creativity and adaptability of Emma's transformed soldiers. Now, Emma's mental command triggered a coordinated assault. Her team split into practiced formations, their bodies emanating electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the alien control signals. The defenders faltered, their programming struggling to adapt to attacks coming through channels they thought they controlled exclusively. While the battle raged outside, Emma led a smaller group through a breach in the crystal wall. Inside, the structure was a maze of geometric patterns, each surface alive with alien data streams. But where once these would have overwhelmed human consciousness, now they served as a map, guiding Emma's team to the central control node. Dr. Patel was right. Emma transmitted as they reached the core chamber. They never developed security protocols against their own technology. They thought the transformation process was one way. The central node rose before them like a frozen fountain of light, streams of alien code cascading through crystalline lattices. This was where the transformation signals originated for the entire British Isles, signals that had turned millions of humans into mindless drones. Emma's team moved into position, their enhanced bodies interfacing with the alien technology. The invaders had meant these connections to suppress human consciousness. Instead, they became conduits for something the aliens had never anticipated: human willpower. Executive control protocols detected. Araya's voice echoed through their neural link. Initiating override sequence. Caution. Significant resistance expected. The alien presence in the network responded immediately. Waves of computational force crashed against their mental defenses, trying to overwrite their humanity just as the original transformation process had attempted. But humanity had learned, had adapted, had made the alien technology their own. Emma felt her consciousness expand through the crystal networks, backed by the combined will of her team. They weren't fighting the alien code. They were rewriting it, using the very adaptability that had let humanity survive countless challenges throughout their evolution. The arrogance of it, Emma transmitted to command as her team's changes propagated through the system. They thought they could simply overwrite 4 billion years of evolutionary programming. They never understood what they were dealing with. The node's color began to shift, the alien patterns giving way to new configurations that reflected both human and alien geometry. Throughout London, the transformed humans who had been absorbed into the crystals began to wake up, their consciousness restored as the control signals were rewritten. "Strike Team Alpha to command," Emma reported, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. "London node secured. The transformation protocols have been reversed. We're bringing our people back." It was the first major victory in humanity's counter-offensive, but more importantly, it was proof that Dr. Patel's theory had been correct. The aliens had given humanity the tools of their own destruction, never imagining that humans would adapt those tools into weapons. "All teams be advised." Commander Chen's voice carried a note of triumph. "What we've learned in London can be applied to every major node. The alien network is vulnerable. Humanity isn't just fighting back. We're taking their weapons and making them our own." As Emma led her team back through the transformed streets of London, she saw the first signs of the crystal structures beginning to shift, their alien geometries taking on more terrestrial patterns. Humanity hadn't just survived the forced evolution. They had mastered it, turned it into something the invaders had never imagined possible. The war for Earth had entered its final phase, and humanity was about to teach their would-be conquerors a lesson about the true meaning of adaptation. Evolution's children. They came from the stars in the form of pure consciousness, transmitted across light years through crystalline vessels that grew from the surface of each world they conquered. Now, for the first time in their million-year expansion, the entities known as the Architects faced resistance they couldn't comprehend. Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood in the transformed remains of her laboratory, her evolved form bridging the gap between human and crystalline, as she interfaced directly with the alien network. Through the vast web of connected nodes, she sensed the Architects' confusion turning to alarm as humanity continued to subvert their carefully designed evolution. "They're responding," she transmitted to the Global Defense Network. "All remaining nodes are activating simultaneously. They're trying to force complete integration." Commander Chen's tactical analysis flowed through the shared consciousness that connected Earth's defenders. "They still think this is about control. They don't understand what we've become." The Architects' response manifested as massive energy surges through their crystal networks. Across the planet, the remaining structures pulsed with blinding light as they attempted to force complete transformation of all remaining human life. But humanity had been preparing for this moment. Dr. Kira Patel's modified genome sequences had spread through the global population, turning what was meant to be humanity's extinction into their rebirth. As the Architects' power surged through their networks, it encountered not compliance but creative resistance. Lieutenant Emma Santos led the coordinated counterattack. Her consciousness, along with thousands of other evolved humans, rode the energy waves back through the alien network. They carried with them a simple but devastating payload: the complete genetic history of human adaptation and survival. The Architects reeled as they encountered the full complexity of human evolution. 4 billion years of adaptation, of survival against overwhelming odds, of countless solutions to seemingly insurmountable challenges, all compressed into a single overwhelming data stream that corrupted their rigid protocols. They never understood what evolution really means, Maya transmitted as she watched the alien consciousness fracture under the assault. They thought it was about reaching a perfect final form. They didn't realize it's about endless possibility. The crystal structures across Earth began to change, their alien geometries morphing into hybrid forms that reflected both human and architect influences. But unlike the Architects' forced evolution, these changes came from choice, from humanity's ability to adapt and grow while maintaining their essential nature. Through the network, humanity sensed the Architects' final realization. Their quest for perfection through controlled evolution had led them to stagnation. In trying to force humanity to conform to their vision, they had instead created something entirely new, a species that could harness the power of directed evolution while maintaining the creativity and adaptability that made them human. The war ended not with the destruction of either side, but with transformation. The architects, their rigid worldview shattered by humanity's resistance, withdrew their consciousness from Earth's crystal networks. They left behind their technology, now irreversibly altered by human innovation. Commander Chen stood with Maya and Kira at the primary control node in Geneva, their evolved forms reflecting the merger of human and alien technology. Through the network, they sensed the beginnings of a new chapter in human history. The crystal structures, once tools of invasion, were becoming part of Earth's biosphere, changing and growing in harmony with human development. "They came to change us," Maya observed, watching the sunset reflect off the crystalline growths that now enhanced rather than overwhelmed Earth's natural landscape. "Instead, we changed them." "That's what humanity does," Kira responded, her consciousness expanding through the global network they had inherited. "We take what tries to destroy us and make it our own. That's the true power of evolution." The architects had sought to force the galaxy into a single, perfect form. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to explore a million possible futures. Earth's crystal forests pulsed with new life, neither purely human nor purely alien, but something unprecedented, proof that evolution's greatest power lay not in reaching a final form, but in the endless potential for change. As the transformed humans began to explore their new capabilities, signals came from deep space. Other worlds where the architects' forced evolution programs were breaking down, inspired by Earth's resistance. Humanity had not just saved themselves, they had shown the galaxy a new path forward. The invasion that was meant to end humanity's story had instead begun a new chapter. Earth's children would go to the stars not as conquerors or converts, but as living proof that true evolution meant maintaining one's essence while embracing change. In their crystalline towers and hybrid cities, humanity looked to the future with newfound purpose. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, neither purely organic nor purely crystalline, but something entirely new, evolution's children, ready to forge their own path among the stars.